for that committee. So when I appointed your chair and your co-chairman, I was another section of the governor's office, and we are there seems to be some need for a look at county government, because we obviously, not only by the findings of the court, have found people guilty of bad practice in office, but we've even had guilty pleas entered, which indicates to us that it's a very serious affair and that it's something that we need to look in very deeply. I mainly want to know how to correct it. I will leave up to the courts and the other groups the thrust that they might feel of investigation and prosecution. I want to know, how can we have the best possible government for Oklahoma?
I wouldn't hope that these changed.
The real issue at hand is the fact that Seagram wants to control the distribution of their products across the country. Oklahoma law provides that if Seagram elects to sell in the state of Oklahoma, it must follow the edicts of the state, of the people of the state, and of the legislature in the state, and sell their products to any wholesaler and without discrimination.
And they feel that by depriving the consumer of their products, they will cause enough furor to discredit Judge Cannon and the legislature, possibly coerce the legislature into passing a franchise bill during the next legislative session. I'm going to ask the consumers to switch products. You know, we've got a lot of good products in here. In fact, like in Canadian whiskeys, there are a half dozen products in here that, taste for taste, I think are so similar it hurts. So I'm saying buy a cheaper product that hasn't been advertised as much, that's just as good, if not better.
Dr. James has been director of the department 3 years. He came here from California. During James' stay, the mental health department has grown substantially in the number of employees and the amount of money it's receiving from the legislature. But Dr. James has no apologies to make for that, saying those changes were needed.
The mental health program has grown a lot, but I can't apologize for that, because I think there was a need to, and I think there was a mandate from the governor and legislator's office, legislature, for us to try to get a good system in place, and that's what we've been trying to do. And so I'm certainly not going to apologize for that, but I can also understand why careful, close scrutiny would be indicated, and I welcome that.
This summer, a special House committee has been investigating the mental health department. Employees have been testifying in secret in fear of losing their jobs. It's reported Dr. James told them not to talk to lawmakers. Among other complaints, Dr. James has used too many consultants to perform jobs that could be handled by department workers, and that he has spent department money in a questionable way. The testimony should wind up next week, and the committee will forward its findings to the Mental Health Board. The Mental Health Board has advised Dr. James not to comment further until he's had a chance to meet with lawmakers. But at this point, it looks like Dr. James has 3 choices: continue as is as mental health director, resign, or face the consequences of a full-scale investigation by the legislature. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the Mental Health Department.
Director of Sooner Alcoholics Narcotics Education, Ross McLennan, has sent a formal complaint to the governor calling for the resignation of the director of the ABC board, Richard Crisp. He accuses Crisp of being influenced by liquor distillers and private clubs, which are preventing his effectiveness as director of the board. Crisp denies these accusations and says he's working for the interest of the law-abiding consumer in the state.
I have no intention of resigning. I haven't, in my view, made any errors on the part of insofar as my job is concerned. I've followed the law, and I fully intend to keep on following the law. One must remember that I have 20 people to cover 77 counties in the state of Oklahoma, and it would be virtually impossible for me to stop all the illegal activities that are currently going on in this state. And I have no intention of being the scapegoat for those actually responsible for the situation as it is. It's been going on now for, again, as I said, for 20 years.
A check with Governor Nigh's office shows that no other groups have brought a complaint against Crisp, and in a statement issued last week, the governor made it perfectly clear that any complaints concerning Crisp should be made directly to the ABC board. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
Agriculture forecasters expect Oklahoma farmers to produce almost 400,000 bales of cotton, compared to 205,000 bales last year. The cotton looks excellent, and farmers are pleased. But Caddo County Extension Agent Lonnie Sellers says there is some concern about insects.
We're going to have to spray, I think, many of our fields for bollworms. We hate to spray for bollworms because when you spray for bollworms, you kill off your beneficial insects, and it's just a vicious cycle in, but when they get bad enough, when they're out of control, you just have to come in and spray.
Sellers says last year's cotton crop in Caddo County was a disaster, but this year it's a different story. He says the cotton crop has never looked so good at this stage of the growing season. Ben McCain, Action 4 in Caddo County.
We don't plan to take any action against our associates, we call them, but we are considering taking action against the union itself.
What type of action are you considering taking against the union?
Some sort of litigation, perhaps a damage suit. We haven't decided that as yet.
Now, the mediator would not have left it. He felt that it was necessary for him to stay here. At the end, there are always final snags that have to be worked out. When he left, we were confident that we would have an agreement before the day was over.
Miles Homes has been in Oklahoma City for a short time, but the company, which sells pre-cut homes, started in Minneapolis 30 years ago. Well, I'm a bit leery about anyone who tells me I can build my own home, but evidently, some people can. It's called Do-It-Yourself. Miles Homes provides all the lumber and supplies needed for the house, as well as an instruction booklet. It's kind of like a gigantic jigsaw puzzle. Pieces are pre-cut to size and numbered. The builder simply matches them up according to the directions. As far as the heating, plumbing, and wiring, if you can do it yourself, great. Otherwise, you may want to contract that portion out. Last February, Pat and Gary Husband bought their supplies and began working on their home in April. So far, they seem to be happy as larks.
Well, we had some doubts as if we could do it, but we were willing to give it a try, and it's been very good so far. It's all worked out real well.
Pat, how much time have you spent on it so far?
We just work in the evenings and on the weekends.
Miles manager Wally Spiegel says that in addition to the money saved on the actual construction, home buyers are able to beat the high interest rates.
Instead of paying 13–14% for interest rates these days, they can build a house of ours for 11.9% interest, and there's nothing down but the program, and their land does not have to be completely paid for.
The average Miles home has 2 or 3 bedrooms and costs anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000. Spiegel says anyone with the desire can build one. I still can't believe I can build my own house, but out of 300 Miles homes sold in Oklahoma, the local Better Business Bureau hasn't received a single complaint. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
Shoppers were stocking up at local liquor stores today, mostly on brands that are or will soon be in short supply. Seagram's was the first major distributor to pull out of the state, and in less than 2 weeks, most of their products have disappeared from the shelves. Others followed, but none as big as the distributor that some say is getting ready to call it quits in Oklahoma.
I got word this morning that there was a real good possibility that the Hiram Walker people would be pulling out of the state this week, probably surrendering their license either today or Monday. That's just a rumor that we've heard. We've also had a rumor that Co-Brands was pulling out of the state, but we find that they are not going to pull out of the state, but they are going to, quote, tighten up on their credit restrictions.
If Walker walks, they'll take a lot of brands with them, like Canadian Club Whiskey, Walker's Special, and 10 High. The popular Two Fingers Tequila, along with their Amaretto and Schnapps brands. This is just a partial list. Hiram's distributes more than 30 different varieties and brands of liquor. So one by one, the major distributors are pulling out of Oklahoma, and retailers, like Byron Gamulus, are wondering what they're going to have left to sell. But the commitment by the national distributors isn't total. You thought Seagram's was out of Oklahoma? Guess who owns Paul Masson Wines? Ted Brown, Action 4 from Byron's Liquor Store.
I was scared to death. I thought for sure he'd gotten killed, and I finally went over and checked it out. I seen him get up. He was all right. I ran outside here I put my shoes on. I tried to get dressed so I come out and see what was happening. I just couldn't believe it. This car had gone through 3 yards, nearly missed 2 houses, a telephone pole, sideswiped a car, and ended up in my back of my house.
It was here, along the banks of the Cimarron River, where the alleged ritual took place, where 20 to 30 people stood by and watched as Carrie Kendall was given as a sacrifice during a devil-worshipping ceremony. Sound pretty far-fetched for a small town like Guthrie? Well, some people think it could have happened. Somehow the people are skeptical about Hayes' conviction. Many believe Hayes to be mentally unbalanced and that he couldn't have acted alone. And so some people aren't ruling the ritual theory out.
And I've met some of the people and stuff, and just the other people that I've talked to and stuff, I really believe it's true, and I think something ought to be done about it. And there's supposed to be a couple cults in Chandler, too.
But others hope that's not the case.
It sounds kind of far out to me. I think they're just looking for a cop-out.
Who knows? Who will ever know?
I worked with her mom at the new Masonic home in Guthrie here, and she treated the little girl like she was really special.
So you're thinking the stepfather killed Carrie Kendall?
I do.
To get an insurance policy?
I do. He knew that he and her mother took the money back if she had passed away.
In the meantime, the judge hearing the case wants to look at some photographs of the girl's body. The latest testimony said there were words carved on it. And so, the case that ended last March has now been clouded with talk of the most evil kind, that worshipers of the devil were involved. Bella Shaw, Action 4, in Guthrie. This street sweeper costs thousands of dollars, and the Department of Transportation spends millions of dollars on equipment every year. Well, that raises the question of kickbacks. But unlike county commissioners, workers at the Department of Transportation are subject to a series of safeguards, most commonly referred to as red tape. And the center of red tape is the Central Purchasing Office at the state capitol. There are no public records on county commissioners' transactions here. But as far as state purchases go, there is an avalanche of information recording every transaction, and so a kickback would be pretty hard to accomplish here.
It takes two people to institute any type of collusion or kickback arrangements. None of our employees buy directly from vendors in the case of large buys on heavy equipment, large orders of materials, so forth. In addition to that, all of the smaller items, most of which are on statewide contracts issued by the Board of Affairs, are put into the warehouse.
And so the warehouse is another safeguard. That's not to say kickbacks don't occur in state government. It's just that it's harder to hide. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
A viewer says, I bought a pair of boots on a layaway plan and I'm unable to complete the payments. Can I demand a refund of the money that I've paid so far? Well, that depends on the terms of your agreement with the store. In other words, the store's rules regarding how it operates its layaway program. If no particular provisions exist, then the store may sell the goods and apply the proceeds to the balance owed to them. You would then be entitled to a refund of all amounts received over and above the amount due to the store. And that amount can include reasonable finance charges. In other words, you should receive a refund of any amounts left over after the store receives the price you originally agreed to pay, plus a reasonable amount to compensate them for the time that they had to wait for your payment. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
So, lawmakers ended up passing the bills the governor wanted, those dealing with immunity, lease purchase agreements, and money for special elections. Once all that was taken care of, it was time for the lawmakers to go home.
We appreciate your company for the last few days, so now we're ready to go home.
Immediately after adjournment, the governor complimented the lawmakers for their work and outlined their accomplishments.
I'm very pleased that the legislature responded to every single request that I made, in trying to accomplish some immediate solutions. I'm very pleased particularly with what I consider the most major step taken that the people wanted, and that is the law that calls for the immediate ouster of anyone who pleads guilty to the commission of a felony while serving.
Brain to inject the inject a lethal drug. Mr. Hayes maintains that he is innocent. Then he also wants to be put to death. We think that's suicide, and there is a law against suicide. We don't think the state should participate in someone else's suicide. If you or I help someone to commit suicide, we would be prosecuted with a crime. We could be prosecuted with murder. So if Mr. Hayes still maintains that he is innocent and still wants to be put to death, then there should be two questions. One, is he competent? And two, should the state participate in his suicide?
Many of these rafts are sponsored by local businesses, complete with more than a little promotion for their product. But if beverages aren't to your liking, how about this one from the Camelot Hotel? 5 weeks in the making, complete with a drawbridge and a dragon.
Well, we've had to keep the ropes on him because we've had a lot of complaints lately. He's been, you know, little kids around. It's a little dangerous. And so we tie him down till we get him out on the water, then we'll kind of let him loose.
Of course, what holiday event would be complete without politicians? In this case, Governor George Nigh and his raft, the George Raft.
We have a great time. My family, we come over. We've been here many years, and we like it. We think it's one of the really great events in Oklahoma. We'll have we just always have the same raft. We just change its name to make people think we built a new one.
Then there is this one built by a wacky group from the Celebrity Club.
Tuesday we're going to finish the damn thing. We'll finish it Tuesday. Really? Tuesday. We'll be back next Tuesday. No, it took about 8 weeks. 8 weeks.
You plan to ride the bikes as well?
No, I'm going in the car to take the trailer back. Really? Ryan, you think I pedal this damn thing down the road?